Hello and welcome to Take This TV, the television book club podcast where each week we watch an episode or two of our favorite shows and we talk about them with our friends in the fandom. I'm Carmen Askernes and I'm joined as always by the amazing Kimberly Woods. Hello.
Hi, hot potatoes.
This season we are watching Shogun.
And today we are on the final episode. It's called A Dream of a Dream. The description: in the wake of a tragedy, Blackthorn finally considers the true nature of Toranaga's plan. It's been a beautiful journey.
I was so sad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mariko's
It's been
dead.
such poetry. Mariko is dead, but her presence is very much felt still on the wind. I love the poetry of this episode. I just want to say, when we go to Lady Ochiba and she's adding on to the poem that Mariko started about the leafless branch, and she adds the flowers are only flowers because they fall, but thankfully the wind. And then we're like left to imagine.
Yeah.
And then it's like,
that was beautiful.
It was so beautiful. And then later on in the episode, when we get Toranaga talking about the wind, because Yabushige says to him, how does it feel to shape the wind to your will? And then he says, I don't control the wind, I only study it. And it's just like, oh, this is, and then he's like looking out at the last scene. And this is, but just the meaning of that and just the poetry of it, like in the words and in the execution in this episode, is beautiful.
It really is. I also think that like this is the first time we've really seen Lord Toranaga be really open about his plans.
Only because Yabushige is about to die.
There is that moment where yeah, that's true. He was talking to a dead man, so I guess it didn't matter.
But I did love that scene.
Yeah. I was like, so we see Blackthorn in the future and he's old. And then his grandkids are there. Do you think he was still in Japan? I couldn't really tell.
I feel like in whatever vision that was in, he was back home in London or something. But in that vision, he's like clutching Mariko's cross still. So I feel like it's like some vision he was having maybe when he was like knocked out after the explosion of regret and longing and still thinking about Mariko's death on his deathbed. But later in this episode, we see him let go of the cross into the ocean in that beautiful scene with Fuji.
Yeah, Fuji.
He's going off to be a nun.
It was kind of sad. Also really, really nice and sweet. I'm glad that they had that final moment together on the boat.
Mm-hmm. It was really beautiful, where she got to spread her family's ashes too, and he was there with her. I love how in the beginning she was like, oh, are you going to like row me to my... She thought he was going to like go row her to become like to the monastery or to the abbey. Yeah.
What did you think about Blackthorn and Martine sort of having a moment of peace amongst the two of them, and Albedo like honoring Mariko's wish?
I love that. I love that right before that we got to see Blackthorn praying over Mariko, and then kind of questioning like, why basically the divisions between like Catholicism and Protestant and, like, what does it really mean? Because I was just praying to a God at that time, not yours, not mine, just, God. And so I like that whole discussion and that kind of putting aside of their differences for Mariko. And also seeing Martin's reluctance to admit that the reason he actually was like letting him go was because of Mariko's wish, because that was what she had asked of him to like save Blackthorn. So I really like that moment. And then later we find out the cost was save Blackthorn, but like destroy his ship.
Yeah, I thought that was like one last, wish from Mariko was for him to stay, and I thought that was really sweet.
And also to give up his
war. There's nothing for him back home.
Yeah, and to give up his senseless war against his, Catholic enemies. And I like that we see that in action, because sometimes I was wondering, like, it seems like they were lovers and we got to see their love story, but that seems like it would have been a divide for them in a way. And we don't really see it. I mean, Mariko's good at getting behind the eightfold fence, so we don't really see that like bother her that much, like visibly on screen. So the fact that it's like, no, she actually gets to, we get to see her will in that way, as far as her not wanting that. I liked that.
Yeah, I did too. And I also I was like, I knew Lord Toranaga had something to do with this.
Actually burned it himself. What did you think?
Were you happy to see Yabushige fight?
Eat it?
Yeah.
I felt like after the last episode, we knew he had to die for what he did. And so I was happy to see him have to pay that price. But I did love the scene, like you were saying before, between him and Toranaga. And I was reading an article too where they're talking about filming of that scene, and because they did it at sunset, they didn't get a lot of takes. But I feel like they had like one close-up of Hiroyuki Sanada's performance or something. But they were talking about just how amazing it was, and like it was hard to know when to cut away from him and like how to edit that scene, because both the actors in the scene like gave such great performances, even with the time limit of the sun setting.
Yeah. I mean, just people at the top of their game for sure.
Yeah. I love the smirk too, like the look that Yabushi gives Toranaga, and then Toranaga smirk before he seconds him.
Yeah. Yabushige remained the cunning fox till the end.
I also love that he does, like we kind of mentioned this before, he does let him in, and always like Yabushige has been like, please Toranaga, let me in on your plan, that's all I want, like when are you gonna let me in on your plan, like throughout the whole season. And so for him to finally get his wish of being let in a little bit. We also hear Toranaga talk about his wishes, like I love. Sorry, I gotta back up first because we haven't talked about what Ochiba did and how she was affected by Mariko. We talked about the poetry she was continuing, but we didn't talk about the fact that she was like, I am going to be generous in honoring Mariko to the fullest, when Ishido was trying not to respect the burial of Mariko, the Christian burial. But the fact that she wanted that, was going to honor that, and then we find out that she sends this letter to Toranaga about, she's going to leave her son's banners off of the battlefield on the day, so Ishida's left and his actions are going to be unlawful. It's like, she really was honoring Mariko. And I'm glad she stepped up, because we were talking about how cool it was when she came in and she was like this baddie and this villain, but we haven't gotten to see so much of that since that initial scene of her being really, really manipulative. That was really satisfying in this final episode.
It was cool to see her finally make her decision and listen to the counsel that she got before, that siding with Ishido was a mistake.
Yeah. And I love that ship still, so I'm like, you can feel her love for Mariko. And I like that we don't get the war. I like that was, in a sense, Crimson Sky, as, Toranaga says. The battle has already been fought. The women have already accomplished it. We don't end the season with, the guys' war. And I'm like, I like that choice.
I mean, I feel like we didn't need a big battle. And it's like the chess pieces moving, the clever tactics, the sacrifices that our heroes made. I think that in the emotional journey that everybody's been on was more satisfying. And I do like that this episode is more about people reflecting on everything that's happened and honoring Mariko and the aftermath of that, instead of some kind of big grandiose finale.
Mm-hmm. Same. I also like that it does feel like Toranaga won, because in his exchange with Yabushige, Toranaga asks, remember what Andine said to me the first day we met? And basically it was if I win, then it all matters. It doesn't matter unless I win. And it really does feel like Toranaga has won. For now, he has his piece.
It came at a hefty price, but he got it. What did you think about Blackthorn making his plea to Lord Toranaga to spare the village?
I like that moment too, because I feel like he's finally, like, we've seen him floundering about, rebelling against, their ways and striking off on his own. And here it's finally like he's using the customs that he's grown to know and seen other people do. Like, instead of fighting against it, he's like, hey, I'm using this. I've seen other people do this as protest. I'm now going to do this as protest for what you're doing. And I really liked that moment because I felt like it was a good arc for his character. At the same time, it felt a little like he was also trying to throw his life away because he was grieving. The way he was yelling at him initially before he said, I'm gonna, protest. I was like, stop, you're just trying to throw your life away because you're sad about Mariko. Stop it. But I liked seeing him come around and more embrace the culture rather than fight against it, it felt like.
Yeah.
What did you think?
I thought it was the first moment where Blackthorn understood the assignment. I mean, I love sort of seeing him pick up everything that he's learned from Mariko and everybody he's been around over the course of the show, and being able to move through the village and talk to people and make moves on his own. He does have I forget the samurai's name as a translator, but for the most part, Blackthorn is able to navigate conversations on his own, which I think is a great way to show how he's grown from being with Mariko. And I love that, like, what we learned from Blackthorn's or Lord Toranaga's conversation with Yabushige is that Lord Toranaga finds Blackthorn entertaining. And so when Blackthorn says that he's going to kill himself in protest and Lord Toranaga stops him, to me, that says that, like, I mean, I feel like neither of them really admits it, but I think that they're friends. And I feel like Lord Toranaga is like, why don't throw your life away for it's meaningless. And he honors the Anjin's wish to spare the village.
And also gives him a renewed purpose with the rebuilding of the ships, which I like. I like their final nod at the end too, when Toranaga is like standing up on the cliff and Anjin has like pulled out the remains of his ship with the people, and he shares that nod with Toranaga where they see each other. I like that.
Yeah. I also like that Buntaro comes and helps pull the ship out.
Me too.
Even though he's
that
still
was a
garbage.
Nice moment. yeah. And I love that, Blackthorn offers him the water. The spy gives Blackthorn that little reed of water, and then he like hands it over to Buntaro, and he takes it. Which also, I was reading that was improvised by Blackthorn's actor, and they only had one take of it, and it surprised Buntaro's actor, and he just went with it. But I'm like, that's cool. But they kept it. It was a good moment.
Yeah, it made it in. It was a sweet moment.
I like that.
I think that there were like a lot of really great moments. And I think overall, just like reflecting on the whole show, I love the way that they told this story. I feel like we got insight not only into the characters, but also the culture. And we've sort of went with Blackthorn on the journey of being strangers in a new land to being someone who's a part of Lord Toranaga's camp and invested in everything that's happening. And I have to say, this is one of my favorite shows that I've ever watched. It's so good. And I feel comfortable like with this ending. Like if this was the end of it, I feel satisfied. But if they made more, I feel like I would also love to see more because I love these characters. What did you think?
I loved it. This is one of my favorite shows. I've been enjoying it from week to week. The cinematography is stunning. Every episode there's a shot that could be a painting. The acting is phenomenal. The writing, the attention to detail is just breathtaking. So I've really enjoyed this journey. I think this ending is a perfect ambiguous ending, like regardless of if we get a season 2 or not. If we don't, we can imagine, we can dream a dream like our characters are dreaming here, which is beautiful and poetic. Or, I'd also be happy to see what goes down. I was reading about the history that it's kind of based on. And in the actual history, there is like an era of peace for a little bit. It does happen that they go to the battlefield. Ochiba's real life character does withhold the banners, and so, like, you know, Ishido is unlawful. So there's peace for a time, and then eventually there is battle, and Toranaga's character has to be Shogun. So I don't know. That's the real life version. Who knows what happens here in the loosely based on it version. But either way, I've enjoyed the journey. I love all these characters so much. I'd love to be in a show like this one day, Carmen. It's been really, really beautiful to watch. So thank you all for going on this journey with us.
Oh,
We hope you've
yay.
enjoyed it. Let us know what you thought. We're at Take This TV on Instagram and TikTok. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a review. Thanks so much again. And remember, it's dangerous to watch TV alone.